Good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Hope you are managing, as we say locally, this whole fuel supply crisis. Motorists have not been able to buy fuel simply because the people locked their gates. There was no explanation, but by now we have a belated explanation. We now are hearing. We still don't know who exactly is saying what. But a press release was put out yesterday night, that the authority, wanted to sort of affirm that yes, there was polluted fuel, and by now you know everything. Yes, they say they have isolated the fuel, including those that were truck bound, that were already bound, and they're going to see what they can do with it. I mean, I don't know. Ordinarily, it's the Minister of Petroleum who would be in the hot seat for this kind of a situation, because I don't know that there's any way you can look at it beyond that. Those in charge dropped the ball. How can you come and tell us now that bad fuel is circulating? What, 100 million? My guest this morning is Malachy Ugwumadu. This is not primarily what he wants to talk about, but still, we had to finish up from, bring up from yesterday. Malachy Ugwumadu, we all know, is a human rights lawyer and former president of the CDHR. As always, we're delighted to have you, Malachy.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Indeed. So, well, here we are now. Now the whole thing has scattered. We're just managing ourselves. We still haven't heard from the Minister of Petroleum. That is Mr. President himself.
Correct.
If the Minister of Petroleum, had been anyone else, I imagine he would have been in the hot seat now. But we're hearing that all those things that we're hearing, we go back. Now we know. We already guessed. We were speculating. Now they have confirmed. But it does mean that there are those who drop the ball. We put people at the watch, at the gate of our quality, of the quality of products supplied to us. Somehow, all sorts of rubbish just entered the country, and now they are saying they are going to see what they can do to recall it. Give me your thoughts before we go on to something else, Ojadi.
Well, that explains the poverty of the situation. As it turns out, the water got contaminated from the source. So
exactly. They say they have identified and now know the supplier of that particular bad batch, and that consequences will follow.
Now, in a country such as ours, with enough capacity to moderate the suffering of the Nigerian people, a country that has suffered a lot of missteps in terms of wrong priorities, a country that has refused to refine locally, and therefore at source not just the employment but all the opportunities and the value chains associated with petroleum production. We are now at the point where even the imported petroleum product, which Nigerians are subjected to buy at cut-throat prices, are now contaminated. My take would be that there should be consequences, and until there are consequences, things like the effect and impact of things like this will not go down properly. The consequence I mean is that people, persons, institutions, agencies of government are expected to ensure that products as well as goods for consumption are fit to
meet the minimum standards.
And if all of those have been thrown overboard, then it will mean that those institutions and gatekeepers have not just failed.
Maybe we
should hear more about that.
That is what I was going to say, that maybe we'll be hearing more from this. The case is, complex a bit in the sense that it is the president that is the Minister of Petroleum.
Makes no difference.
Yeah, but ordinarily, if it wasn't the president that is the Minister of Petroleum, people would have been talking about maybe this minister needs to go. Maybe this minister needs to lose this job. There will be these political conversations, but you can't say that in this case.
In an election year, no less other times, when a president takes responsibility, it imparts on the rating of that president as well as his or the political party and the government that he controls. So perhaps what we'll be insisting on is that he takes responsibility. And he's not there alone. He has a Minister of State for Petroleum, which is the former Governor of Bayelsa State, Temi Persevere. All of these should be lined up and made to answer questions, you know, with respect to this. No person is saying that thorough investigations are come out. But from their own quarters, there have been some measure of concession, of admission, that this is what is suspected or this is what has happened. To that extent alone, the Nigerian people who are the victims of this indiscretion must at least get further clarification, get statements, you know, emphasizing that people have taken responsibility, and then wait to hear what remedial courses must be taken. And what I mean by that is that you don't just you know, impact on consumption, leading to destruction of vehicles or compromise in what we consume. And then at the end of the day, we're just told that, oh, because it involves the president. That is even more, that is the reason, the more reason why there should be, people should take responsibilities, and then Nigerians should be compensated for that. Well, I guess that people's vehicles are damaged at the moment.
Exactly.
I guess that in the weeks coming, we pack up.
Exactly.
And then it's not just a question of buying fuel at very high cost. It is that the vehicles and the equipment and the machine that use petroleum products are all imperiled, as the case may be.
This, the statement that we got last night, that was released last night as a press release, was issued by Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, thereafter called the Authority, and was signed as the Authority. Okay. Even then, nobody signed. Nobody agreed to sign. Nobody wanted to put their name to this mess. It is issued by, and then again you have Nigerian Midstream, Downstream. I mean, look, if the NSPC is speaking, is it not Malachy Ugwumadu that should be signing it as the chief NNPC honcho? So who is the chief honcho here?
So as you know, the Petroleum Industry Act has come on stream. Whether it is operating at the full capacity, in quote, is a different kettle of fish. But the point is that there are companies now that have taken form and shape in the two entities that you have just mentioned, and that is in response to the PIA already turning NNPC, as it were, into full incorporated companies for profit making and run as a corporate entity, unlike the service providing NNPC that we used to have. So from that standpoint, you could see statements coming from them. But it doesn't solve our concern now. Our concern is that the Nigerian people who are the victims of failure of leadership have now been subjected to what I call double jeopardy. Because on the one hand, they are made to buy these petroleum products at very exorbitant price. Forget the argument about what the international cost of petroleum products. It is that we don't refine here, and if we refine here, we ought to be buying even lesser. Now, having outsourced that, and having made the Nigerian people, the owners of this product, have to buy the same finished product at exorbitant price, that is one jeopardy, one nightmare on its own. The other is that it is not just about buying it at a high cost, it is also about buying contaminated
and that's
petroleum product
and somebody
that has a ripple effect of damaging not just the vehicles but every other thing you use the petroleum product for.
And somebody that there's no how that subheading there, right there, somebody let that thing in.
Yes.
It's an office, a department, a unit, a section, call it what it is, call it whatever it is. Somebody was responsible for checking. Ultimately, it's the Minister of Petroleum who got us in this mess. I mean, well,
the buck stops there.
That's where the buck stops. And it's just so happens that the Minister of Petroleum is also the President of the Federal Republic. Good morning, Reverend Dominic.
Good morning, Ibrahim.
Please go ahead now.
Good morning, Dr. Malachy.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Reverend.
Get this picture. At times, when we travel out, the insult we get at point of every nation is pointed to this. From the point of loading this fuel, in the nation, there's no quality control. From the point of loading it in Nigeria, nobody tested it at all before it gets to the end user. There's a video that's going around on social media, if you have seen it, somewhere in Southern town. One police station there has sold it to many vehicles, and the vehicle broke down right in that police station, and many Nigerians stuck in there for the police station or the manager's police. Now, who paid the damages of this vehicle? Nobody. That's Nigeria. Who is the marketing manager or marketing director, international in any business? Nobody. Now, if this thing also goes the way things go in Nigeria, I wish for my nation. The man that's supposed to be talking to us now is Minister of State, which is this end of step, sorry. That's Siva, the former governor of Bayelsa State. It's supposed to be talking to Nigerians now. But it's not apology. How to pay these damages? I read on point this morning, they're going to return back 100, back to where it's coming from. 100 million liters, that's where it's coming from. Who takes the expenses? Nobody anyway. The person who bought it have made this money. What a nation.
Well, they said there's going to be a refund. They said there will be a refund. I believe.
Vote for Buhari.
Yeah, continue.
I talked to my people to vote for Buhari, and most of them today mock at me. At every time I come to church, people mock at me. They come and say, Baba, because I voted this government. This government is falling our hands in our local palace. This government is inflicting pain on some of us who supported this government and Buhari. It's painful pain. If this can also go, remember this is not the first time. In 1997, that was the military government. We have a fuel that smelled all over Lagos, if you remember. That was other 94, and nothing happened. I guess nothing will happen for this. But if nothing happens, that's Nigeria. Okay. Good morning, my brothers. Good morning, Yuri. Good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Well, I don't think Reverend should be under immense pressure regarding what people...
Him being called Say Baba?
Yes. The reason,
because of his advocacy.
The reason being that at every material time and point, we need to be driven by the force of our conviction. Imagine if you didn't have a position then, you probably would also not have been able to influence a lot of people to think in the way you think they should think at that time. So don't hit the head too hard on the wall. allow the judgment you exercise then to prevail. But going forward, the beauty of democracy and republicanism is that at intervals, the citizenry in whom the sovereignty resides, according to Section 14, will reactivate that power to change government again, considering what has happened between the time you exercise that discretion and now. And that's the beauty of it. So I'm not convinced that at that material time, there were no reasons why you took the decision or the position that you took. That is not to hold the brief for you. That is to say that at every material point in time, at every turn and at every curve, we must be able to be driven by the force of our conviction, provided they are altruistic and they are founded on very credible facts that you can play on.
Well said. I hope that will be a succor to... it's not just Reverend Dominic. There are many people who express that same sentiment. Good morning, Mr. George. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning to Malachy.
Good morning, George.
Uncle Yori, it is true, the president is the minister of petroleum. But on this one, I will examine, because he has a minister of state that is in charge of day-to-day operations of that ministry. That is the one that needs to face the music. We don't expect the president, there's a reason I believe he wants to be the minister, he wants to retain that portfolio and put somebody that will be on a day-to-day management of that. That is the person that should be able to know how this thing happened. I suspect sabotage. And if I were the president, that minister will not be in the office this morning. But unfortunately, the president that we know, if he trusts you, it will take a century for somebody to convince him that you have done wrong. You remember the case of Abachi Lawa. You know how long and all the disputes that happened before he was eventually kicked out. This is unfortunately a government that appointees just do what they like and get away with it. That is why we are not seeing much of improvement in the services to the public.
Which is unfortunate.
How dare you do this? Much people have lost. You know the damage this has caused to people. You know how much it takes to buy a Tokumbo car now for somebody to sweat and buy a Tokumbo car.
And
then he buys fuel.
You have to start fixing
then
the
engine gets knocked. No, it is. I don't know the word to use.
Well, thank you for calling in, Mr. George. A lot of people will feel your frustration as well. And unfortunately, something George said in there about we've gotten to a level where we're almost, that is to say, people in responsibility can do anything they want and get away with it, or in this case, not do anything that they were supposed to be doing. Well, he said he's the Minister of State. Okay, yeah, I can understand that. But ultimately, where does the buck stop? But so I understand what he's saying. Now, litigations loom is one paper. That's the Guardian this morning. The Punch is saying something similar. Adulterated petrol. Federal government may return fuel to suppliers. 100 million liters affected, say the marketers. Well, as I said, we didn't get to hear in good enough time. Finally, they said something, and here we are, Mr. George, putting the other side of the story that, look, yeah, Mr. President, but also here's a Minister of State. Nobody's taking responsibility for this. My guess is that it's so embarrassing that nobody wants to touch this with a 10-foot pole. So they're hoping that if we are quiet about it and let all these people go out, let them sign their name, Nigerian midstream and downstream petroleum regulatory authority, hereafter called the authority, let those ones talk. Don't say anything, or maybe they'll forget. Maybe Nigeria will just go on. Maybe something else will happen. Let something else happen and let's just get off this subject. This is so embarrassing. That's my own imagination.
Others have hazarded a guess that could it not be the price Nigerians are paying for resisting the proposed increase for petroleum product. If you say you are not going to pay, we give you an adulterated product, not just testing the water, but to also tell you what can happen. There are all forms and manners of strenuous considerations. However, Mr. George that talks about exonerating the president, I understand clearly why that can be said and sustained as an argument that is founded on some logic. However, if you also, in another breath, identify a president that doesn't take responsibility and does nothing about things that he's not happy about, you push that same blame back to him squarely. So by now...
I'm not sure what you mean about doesn't take responsibility. Are you talking in this specific case or generally?
Well, to the extent that almost 72 hours. Make no mistake about it.
I just want to be sure that you're talking about this petrol cock-up.
No, of course, that is what we're discussing.
One moment, sir, please, because Femi in Rivers has been waiting. Good morning, Femi. Femi in Rivers, good morning. Oh, dear.
Your guest. The box stop, the issue of that adulterated fuel stops at DPR. You cannot even import 1 liter of petroleum products into this country over the DPR. And the first thing for DPR is when you bring any product, the quality control is by the DPR. The responsibility for this particular issue lies in the DPR and no other person. It's not an NPC that brings it to swell. The DPR is responsible for checking the quality of any petroleum product coming into the country. You cannot even import a liter of petroleum without the approval of DPR before you can even process payment.
So what do you think happened this time? So what do you think happened this time, Femi?
The laxity in the civil service is what causes this thing. Some people will just come, they just bring your form, they go there to go and check. They just sign that they are checked. So the responsibility for this particular program lies with the DPR. DPRS is supposed to be removed by now. The head of that DPR is supposed to have been removed by now because he didn't carry out his responsibility properly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for calling in. You see, in the absence of straightforward, direct to camera facts, we will use logic and the knowledge that we have to come up with possible scenarios. Femi has just availed us of one.
No, that's a very important point. But you know that as we discuss, in principle, we are dealing with those whom we have given the responsibility to manage the affairs of this country along those lines. So you're discussing the president, who is the Minister of Petroleum Resources. You're discussing the Minister of State for Petroleum. Of course, the DPR is at the center of it all. In short, as a practicing lawyer, when you are dealing with bunkering and sabotage and all manner of offenses relating to petroleum products, it is the DPR that takes the sample for analysis. It is what they say that the court acts on, whether it meets the standard or below the standard.
So there's a system. There is a system, is what Femi was pointing out.
People are even talking about the consumer protection agencies. All of these ought to work in collaboration to ensure that Nigerians do not pay for products that will destroy their vehicles and put them in double jeopardy, as I have said earlier.
Yes, because this. Well, let me take Shegun. Good morning, Shegun in Enugu. Shegun in Enugu, mute your television set and then speak to us, please.
Yes.
Shegun in Enugu. Okay. So,
Uncle Yori, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
And Dr. Malachy, good morning.
Well, I'm not yet a doctor, but thank you for promoting me. Malachy Ugwumadu is my name. Thank you.
All right. So, please, Femi that called last spoke direct to the point. It is clearly the responsibility of DPRO to monitor the quality of products. It is their responsibility. I worked in the sector for over 11 years and I understand that. But what happened is they don't check because of the level of corrupt system today. You know, people bring in papers, somebody will sit in the office, collect bribe, let's call it what it is, collect bribe, and sign and approve the paper for you to go ahead. So if they trace it, they can trace it down to the person or persons directly responsible. That is one. This incident has brought us in the fact that in Nigeria, our government has failed us in terms of standard organization. Not only in petroleum, this one is just one part. Let me just quickly, because of time, go straight to the functions of NAFDAC, for example. Since Dora Akunyele, I'm sorry to say, NAFDAC has failed on their responsibilities. So many products in the market today, you'll be wondering whether we have standard organization. Some of them are not up to the quantity that are claimed to be on the paper or that comes with it. So many things going on. We don't have standards organization again doing their job. People checking to protect consumer protection agencies. All have failed that time. So this is an opportunity for Mr. President to please sit up with his ministers and whoever that are responsible to go down the line, check our standard procedures and everything in this country so that the masses will be saved further stress. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Shegun. Okay. So, I have to go on a break now, but the manner in which this was explained, that I think it was Femi and Rivers who said that, look, somebody just signed off what he did not check. It happens, and God has been protecting us all this while until this one now blew the whole thing open. That is the manner in which we used to get driving licenses before. You know, you can stay at your home and somebody will bring your driving license to you. You can stay at home, somebody will bring a passport to you. Happily, those days are over.
The situation was about bringing the NRC document.
Happily, those days are over. I don't think you can get a passport sitting in your sitting room anymore. You have to come up there, whether you like it or not. Same thing with a driving license. But that's an example of how that idea is not at all alien to us.